Chapter 111. Doing things I should do to dearest wifey. That is of course different. Gu Jingze said, there's no difference. We'll set it as that. This is the safest, and also if anything happens to you, everybody will see this and immediately call me. This way, if you encounter a situation so dangerous like yesterday's, people will know who to contact for you, right? But Lin Che thought that it was too mushy. She would simply get goosebumps when she saw the name. Especially when the person called that was Gu Jingze. Gu Jingze's face darkened as he pulled her. If I catch you changing it on your own, I will personally go to your company and help you change it back. That would be something else. The company was still going to be her way out in the future. She wanted an ordinary life and to work hard towards the top. If he became associated there, she could forget about acting in peace. Lin Che could only pout and felt unjust, but my number on your phone is saved as my name too. So what about it? Lin Che's eyes moved and she started searching for his phone. Give me your phone. What are you doing? Gu Jingze tried to push her away, but after considering her leg injury, he decided not to make large movements. Lin Che chased him around for his phone and finally got it out from his pocket. Hey, what are you doing? Don't move around. Gu Jingze tried to hold her down. Lin Che jumped around avoiding Gu Jingze, her arms stretched out with the phone as she searched through the contacts. She found her name and quickly changed it to, dearest wifey. Gu Jingze reached for her and grabbed her. He accidentally fell on top of her as they both landed on the bed. Lin Che was concentrating on the phone and did not notice that Gu Jingze's head was looking down at her soft chest and thinking that it looked rather comfortable. Lin Che finished changing it and grinned at him in satisfaction. Gu Jingze looked and immediately snatched his phone back. He saw the name and looked speechlessly at Lin Che. The corners of his lips curled slightly. After staring at the words for a while, he thought it looked good. Looking down at Lin Che, his hands were holding hers. He gazed at her bright eyes and smiled. Changing it to this name is not unacceptable. Lin Che then realized she had unknowingly been pressed down by him. She started to struggle. You can change it back if you want. She had grown savvy and knew that she could not use force against him to win. She quickly retreated. Gu Jingze smiled and held his body over hers. Since you've changed it, I won't change it back. But as he spoke, he lowered his head even more. Dearest hubby wants to do some things to dearest wifey that a husband should do. What? Lin Che's eyes widened. Then, Gu Jingze came down on her and he kissed her on her lips. Ah! Lin Che quickly pushed Gu Jingze away. With Gu Jingze's deep laughter, she hurriedly jumped off the bed and dashed to the restroom to wash. She had not brushed her teeth. This Gu Jingze, did he not mind? Gu Jingze watched her slip away in a split second and smiled silently after her. She may not know the 36 stratagems, but she played the last one extremely well. Lin Che got to the company during the day. People in the company saw her arrive and observed that her leg was indeed injured. They were all waiting for her last night, but she did not turn up. She used to be a small actress who was suppressed like the rest. Who knew that she would become famous in an instant? Naturally, there were jealous people. However, it was like that in this industry. People got famous by sheer chance. However, this was not simply because of luck. Nobody knew who the next big star was going to be. Lin Che was exactly like that. She entered the company at the same time as these people, but now, she was the main celebrity. One could simply appear side by side with other big stars now, but some would still choose to play smaller roles. Lin Che saw Yu Minmin and apologized. It really wasn't on purpose yesterday. It's alright. I already told the company about your injury and at least they still think you're good. Be careful when you drive next time. Yu Minmin let Lin Che sit down as she spoke. Lin Che said depressingly, I won't be driving in the future. Why? The car got too damaged? Yu Minmin asked. Lin Che replied, no. Gu Jingze said he's not allowing me to drive anymore. Yu Minmin listened and was stunned for a while before laughing loudly. Gu Jingze is actually doing this for your own good. Lin Che thought silently. She barely touched her car and now she was forbidden to. Seriously. Yu Minmin said to Lin Che, right, reality shows are the next big thing now. There's a reality program that wants you to do a guest appearance for 1 week. Do you want to go? Looking at her injured leg, Yu Minmin felt a little worried. Lin Che looked, wow, this reality show is really popular. Yes, Yu Minmin added. But there's going to be some games when the time comes. It'll be fine, I will recover from this minor injury soon. Alright, if there's anything when the time comes, we will talk to the director and tell him not to make things too exciting. You better rest properly these next few days. The filming starts in a week, so you still have time. Yes. In the afternoon, Lin Che took the nanny's car home. Her phone rang and she looked down to see, "Dearest hubby," displayed clearly with big letters on her screen. Her heart was awkward and she still felt that it was weird. She picked it up and Gu Jingze said, "I asked Chen Yucheng to take a look at you. What time will you be back?" "No way, isn't he a psychologist? Psychology is his specialty, come home quickly." Lin Che could only say okay. But soon after, she got an alert from WeChat. It was a message from Yoren, "Lin Che, your old lady is back. Why didn't you pick me up from the airport? You didn't answer your calls either. What's going on?" Shen Yoren was back. Lin Che's heart was elated. She did not expect her to be back today. Yoren was her confidant. She went abroad to study a year ago and only just returned. Lin Che hurriedly replied on WeChat, "Wait for me at the airport. I'll go pick you right now." "Are you really coming? Then I'll wait for you at a coffee shop at the airport." Lin Che quickly told the driver to head to the airport and she called Gu Jingze. "Gu Jingze, I can't go back right now. I have a friend who just arrived and I'm picking her up from the airport." "What? Who?" Gu Jingze asked suspiciously, but Lin Che did not even give him the chance to ask as she had already hung up. Gu Jingze stared angrily at the words, "Dearest wifey," on his screen. What kind of wife was this? "Ask someone to find out who Madam knows has returned today," he instructed Qin Hao. Qin Hao soon returned with the results. Looking at Gu Jingze hesitantly, he said, "Sir. It seems like today, the second young master of the Qin family, Qin Qing, just returned from France." What? Chapter 112. If you don't come back in 20 minutes, then don't come back at all. She went to pick up Qin Qing, Sashi. Airport. Lin Che let the driver stop and wait outside while she rushed in to find Shen Yoren. In the coffee shop, Shen Yoren was sitting at a table with suitcases of various sizes beside her. "Yoren," Lin Che shouted happily. Shen Yoren heard and immediately looked up to see Lin Che. She stood up and ran towards her. With a big embrace, the two hugged each other tightly and then let go. Shen Yoren was smaller than Lin Che. Her hair reached past her shoulders, but she was petite and dressed in a British fashion. She looked extremely adorable. "Wow, Lin Che, I can't believe it. The moment I returned, I already saw your advertisement. They're playing it even in the airport." "What advertisement?" "The candy advertisement." Shen Yoren pulled Lin Che along and made her sit as she spoke with excitement. Lin Che acknowledged it and said, "The airport is still playing that advertisement. I filmed it a long time ago. It was not easy to land that job because the advertisers nearly got arrested." "No way, that's so dangerous. But I really can't believe it. It's only been about a year since I was away and here you are, already a big star." Shen Yoren was full of pride as she patted Lin Che's shoulder. She grinned and said, "To think that I know a celebrity now. I can proudly puff up my chest." Lin Che looked at her speechlessly. "What big star? I'm still a newcomer and far from making it big." She looked up and saw Mu Feiren's perfume advertisement playing. Mu Feiren looked very elegant, generous and decent. She met the international standards. Lin Che said, "Now, she is a big star." It was not easy to get hired by an international advertising firm like this, but Mu Feiren was fully endorsed. Obviously, she was indeed different from the average celebrity. Shen Yoren said, "This will not do. I need to take a selfie with you and show it off on my Weibo." "That's not necessary." "It's definitely necessary. Come and take a picture with me." Shen Yoren grabbed Lin Che over and took a picture with a snap. Just then, Lin Che's phone rang. Lin Che bent down to look. The words, "Dearest hubby," flashed repeatedly on the screen. Shen Yoren also saw and jumped in surprise. Oh my! Who is that? This, Lin Che said in a fluster. This is nothing. The name is just a joke. He's not the type of husband you'd imagine. Shen Yoren listened and replied, oh. Boyfriends are practically called husbands nowadays. I get it. You're only 23 years old, so you're too young to get married, but a boyfriend is good. When did you get a boyfriend? Quick, tell me, what's going on? He's not a boyfriend either. Her relationship with Gu Jingze was complicated and she could not figure out how to explain it. But the phone kept ringing and she had no choice but to shush Shen Yoren before she picked it up. In the phone, Gu Jingze's voice was deep. When are you coming back? Lin Che did not know for sure if he was angry, but for some reason, she could already picture Gu Jingze's dark and gloomy face. But why would he be angry? Just because she was not home and she was at the airport. I just met my friend. I want to talk for a while before I go back, Lin Che said. Will 10 minutes be enough? Lin Che said depressingly. How can 10 minutes be enough? We haven't seen each other in so long. Of course, we're going to talk for longer. 20 minutes. Lin Che, if you don't come back in 20 minutes, don't think about coming back. When Gu Jingze finished, he immediately hung up. Lin Che listened to the impetuous beeps and her eyes widened. So ridiculous. What's the meaning of this? Why should he care? I can talk however long I want to. If I can't go back, so be it. Seriously, Gu Jingze was getting out of hand, meddling in her affairs. Never mind that he deleted her contacts, he was now even limiting her time with her friend. How could Gu Jingze be so demanding? She did even not bother if he went to find some childhood sweetheart and whisper sweet nothings. On the other side, Gu Jingze threw down his phone and sat there. His entire body was so cold that nobody would have dared go close. Chen Yucheng entered and saw that exact situation. He looked hesitantly at Qin Hao, who dared not say a word. He pulled Qin Hao out and asked, what happened to your sir? Qin Hao sighed and whispered, he's jealous. What? Chen Yucheng exclaimed uncontrollably. Shish, do you want me to die? Qin Hao quickly held down Chen Yucheng. Dr. Chen, please go give some advice to sir. He's quite pitiful actually. Who dared to say Gu Jingze was pitiful? If he was pitiful, what would that make the rest of all the men on earth? What in the world? Sir asked you over to do a checkup for madam, but she stood him up. She went out to pick up a friend. Someone actually dares to stand Gu Jingze up. Exactly. Anyway, sir is about to explode at any minute. Dr. Chen, you're here just in time. You're highly respected and you're a professional. I'm entrusting sir to you. I'll retreat for now. Oi, I'm not some love doctor. Why are you running? Watching Qin Hao slip away without even turning back, Chen Yucheng could only look quietly and sighed. When he entered, Chen Yucheng said, President Gu, I think if you have any issues, matters of the heart, or some frustration, you can tell me everything. Just like old times. Me, there's nothing really. Gu Jingze was expressionless while his hands fiddled with some company documents. Chen Yucheng said, about madam. Perhaps madam might not be coming back quickly because of something serious. That uncaring woman, she might as well not come back. Gu Jingze's brows jumped stiffly. As he spoke, he slammed the documents down on the table and got up to leave. Chen Yucheng finally understood why Qin Hao said Gu Jingze was pitiful. Really pitiful. Outside, Shen Yoren sat at the bar counter and watched Lin Che get drunk. Hey, what was that call about just now? Why are you suddenly so angry? Lin Che looked up at Shen Yoren. I'm angry. Why would I be angry? I'm not angry at all. They had just placed Shen Yoren's luggage back at her place. When Shen Yoren returned, she wanted to stay with her family. As her parents were around, they stayed for a while before coming to the bar. It has been a lot longer than 20 minutes. Lin Che did not go home as she didn't want to talk to Gu Jingze on the phone again. Just who was it? Who can make you so vexed? Don't tell me it was Qin Qing. Shen Yoren knew about her and Qin Qing. Based on her knowledge, she did not know anybody else besides Qin Qing who could make the uncaring Lin Che so agitated. How can that be? Chapter 113. A jealous man is really cold. Lin Che looked up quickly and said, nonsense. Qin Qing is my future brother-in-law, there is nothing between us. Are you serious? They're still together. They're going to be married soon. You don't follow the country's entertainment news enough. They've already reported it multiple times. Lin Che still felt uncomfortable thinking about it. However, time was the best healer. Now when she thought about it, it did not hurt as much as before. Shen Yoren said quietly, aren't you too sloppy then? You haven't told him that you like him even until now. It's better to let him know, no matter what the outcome is. Enough, Yoren. Sometimes, regret is a beautiful thing. Lin Che tugged at Shen Yoren and smiled. Gu Jingze appeared in her mind as she recalled what he told her. If she wanted, he could help bring her and Qin Qing together. But thinking about it now, she actually did not want it. Being with Qin Qing no longer seemed important to her anymore, at least not as important as her career. All she truly wanted now was to be able to improve further. Mu Feiren was her role model. Shen Yoren sighed and then hugged Lin Che. They were like two troubled brothers drinking beer together. Cheers. That's right, nothing compares to drinking our night away. Come come come, whoever gets drunk first has to foot the bill. Are you dumb? How can a drunk pay up when they won't even know where their wallet went? They were drinking when suddenly, a man walked over to them. Hey, you two ladies drinking alone must be bored. We have a bunch of guys over there. Come have some fun with us. Shen Yoren was a bit buzzed. She looked up and shook her bottle. She said, who wants to drink with stinking men? All the men on earth are scum. Lin Che nodded her head vigorously, yes yes, all scum, all bastards. Gu Jingze, especially, was a bastard. Getting all mushy with Mo Hiling yet he wanted to mess around with her. The man heard and was amused. He leaned over and said, little girl, you're wrong. If men were so bad, women wouldn't fall in love with them. Don't you women love men like us? And we are bad because we want you to like us. As he spoke, he already grabbed Shen Yoren, trying to pull her over. Come, let's go have some fun. Let go of me. Let go or I'll kick your nuts. Hey, if you kick them, how am I going to enjoy myself later? The man was particularly strong and direct. Shen Yoren struggled angrily. Lin Che quickly went over and blocked him. Leave us alone or we won't be so courteous to you. Lin Che was so mad that she slapped the man's face. Do you have no shame? She doesn't want to follow you. Why are you still grabbing onto her? The man was stunned. Cursing and swearing, he glared at Lin Che and lunged toward her. But at this exact moment, a hand came in front of Lin Che's face. Lin Che froze. She looked up and saw that Chen Yucheng had suddenly appeared beside her. The man panicked. Chen Yucheng took the man's arm in one hand and grabbed his shoulder in the other hand. In one quick movement, he threw the man face down onto the floor with one arm behind his back. He yelped in pain. Get lost. If I see you again, you'll be in for it. Shen Yoren raised her head in a daze. Oh, a handsome hero saving the damsel in distress. As she spoke, her hand rested directly on Chen Yucheng's chest. Lin Che quickly pulled the drunk Shen Yoren back. This woman's alcohol tolerance was worse than hers. It hasn't even been that long and she was already in such a drunken state. Sorry, Dr. Chen, she's my friend and she's a little drunk. Chen Yucheng watched Lin Che try to hold onto a swaying Shen Yoren. Then, he pulled her back and said, leave it to me, madam. Why are you still here? Your husband at home has gone crazy mad. Gu Jingze was crazy mad. Lin Che pouted and turned to him. Who asked him to be so demanding? I can't even spend time with my friend. Chen Yucheng replied, he cares about you. Impossible, he's just demanding. Well, you stood him up. My dear Mrs. Gu, he is Gu Jingze after all. Ask around the whole B district if anyone dares to stand Gu Jingze up. Lin Che thought about it. In the beginning, Gu Jingze wanted to help check on her injuries, that was why he wanted her home. He may have been a little aggressive, but he had good intentions. Her heart softened. Looking at Chen Yucheng, she pouted and said, he could have spoken nicely. But, she looked up sheepishly at him, am I really the first one to stand him up? Well, you're not exactly the first, Chen Yucheng said. Then, what happened to whoever did that first? He disappeared from the B district. After that, I don't know what happened either. Quote. It was that serious. This man was too tyrannical. Chen Yucheng continued, he locked himself in the gym and refuses to come out. That's why I hurried here to find you and make you go back as soon as possible. Let's send her home first then. It's okay, you can leave this lady to me and go back first. Oh, alright then, this is Shen Yoren, she lives in the Golden Garden estate with her parents. She cannot stay out overnight. Please help me take her back home. She believed Gu Jingze's doctor could be trusted. She left Shen Yoren with him and then quickly left the place. Shen Yoren had no clue what was going on. She looked up and saw a cold-looking man with her. Her fingers reached up. Hey, handsome. You don't look too shabby. How much for a night? Too bad sister has no money. You better let me go. What did she take him for? What kind of people did Lin Che know? GU residence. Lin Che entered and the maid quickly said, Madam, you're finally back. Sir is in the gym and he hasn't come out. Lin Che thought, who knew that this Gu Jingze would be so petty? He was still so upset even though it has been a long time. It was just an appointment. Also, she had told him over the phone. She had not seen Shen Yoren for a year. Could she not go pick up her friend from the airport? She quietly opened the door and peeked inside. Gu Jingze was exercising topless and wearing a pair of exercise shorts. Sweat glistened on his back, showing off his muscles. He was beautifully fit and he was like a walking embodiment of pheromones. Nobody could take their eyes off him. What a handsome man. She closed the door lightly but it made a sound, startling Gu Jingze who was inside. In a glimpse, he saw Lin Che at the door. Gu Jingze's eyes narrowed and he stared intensely at her. There was an air of anger surrounding him that would have made people shudder. Who said you could come in? Gu Jingze let go of the pec deck machine and got up, looking coldly at her. Coming to find him only after seeing her beloved. That blandish expression of hers was such a turn-off. Was he a man who would be satisfied with mere coddling in her eyes? Chapter 114, This is your punishment. Lin Che quickly closed the door and looked at Gu Jingze inside. What's up with you? Gu Jingze frowned as he stared at her. I said that you can leave. I'm not leaving. If you don't tell me what's wrong, I'm not leaving, Lin Che said as she walked in and took big strides towards Gu Jingze. Gu Jingze was expressionless as Lin Che approached him. Can you be more feminine? I already said that you can leave. People told me to scram a million times, but I'm still alive and well in the entertainment industry. The thick-skinned Lin Che sat down on a machine that she was unfamiliar with, her eyes sweeping over Gu Jingze's muscular body. Gu Jingze's smooth brows furrowed and his black eyes were filled with fire like a burning star in the sky. He was clearly quiet and angry. Are you forcing me to throw you out? Gu Jingze stared fiercely at her. Lin Che was worried by his furious eyes but she planted her petite face there and steadily looked at Gu Jingze. Gu Jingze, I'm here to explain things to you. I went to the airport to pick up a friend. You don't have to be so angry about it. I may be your wife, but I'm still a human. I have my rights to have friends. Didn't we agree not to interfere with each other's lives? Gu Jingze replied, not interfere. Yes, I'm not interfering with your right to have friends but since you have friends, you don't need to come back. So I want you to leave now. Lin Che thought that Gu Jingze was completely ridiculous. There was no one as volatile as him. At that point, Gu Jingze was already grabbing her and dragging her out. Gu Jingze, let go of me. You are a pure bastard and bully, you. Lin Che was so agitated that she turned her head and bit down on his hand. The saltiness from his sweat-drenched skin was a little overwhelming. Gu Jingze did not even budge. It was as if he did not feel any pain. Lin Che released his hand and looked up to see Gu Jingze's stone expression. Lin Che huffed, if I say that I'm not leaving, it means that I'm not leaving. She stubbornly refused to compromise in a fit of anger. Gu Jingze's brows converged as he grabbed Lin Che and threw her onto the cushioned seat of a piece of gym equipment. Thereafter, he used his salty body to hold her down. Lin Che could only feel his masculine breath. It was very obvious that his body was still wet. His clothes were soaked in so much sweat that they were translucent and slippery. The man who pressed her down made Lin Che almost unable to catch her breath. But the way he forcefully held down her hands and pushed them into the cushioned seat was an indescribable feeling. She felt scared and could not stop herself from shaking. However, seeing him drenched in sweat and her body so close to his manhood, her body wanted to explode with a loud sigh. It was that complicated. A body that just worked out was like a beast that just awakened and felt wild. His originally beautiful muscles were now more prominent, exhibiting strength from the workout. One could not resist touching them. His huge hands held her 10 fingers. When he kissed her, salty sweat trickled into her mouth. In that moment, Lin Che felt a shudder moving upward from her lower abdomen as if she was floating. He pulled away. She licked her lips longingly as if shamelessly asking for more. However, her common sense was pounding on the door of her heart. Gu Jingze, you're too hot. Let go of me. Now you say that, but it's too late. Gu Jingze looked at her dazed eyes and in that instant, wanted her right there. Her petite body made one feel the urge to charge into it. No, you're pressing down on me. It hurts. Good, it won't hurt in a bit. Gu Jingze's lower area stirred. Didn't this woman know exclaiming pain like that was a deadly lure for men? But be a good girl, it won't hurt. It won't hurt in a while. Gu Jingze held onto her as his hand gravitated downwards. Gu Jingze, let go of me. Lin Che was talking with a lot less energy now. Gu Jingze said, no more next time. If you oppose me again, I won't let you off. Who's opposing you? I only went to meet a friend. Lin Che was on the verge of crying. Gu Jingze retorted, friend? How nice does that sound? You could have just said it was your beloved and it wouldn't make a difference. What beloved? Lin Che raised her head, fighting back her tears as she looked at him. Because of what was happening, she really wanted to cry. How did it get so ugly? Gu Jingze replied, Chin Ching. Isn't he your beloved? Why do I have to make it so clear to you? Lin Che looked at him with a puzzled face, what Chin Ching? Are you crazy? I went to pick up Shen Yoren, my friend. She just came back from studying abroad. Gu Jingze's brows twisted. He looked at her in disbelief, you didn't go meet Chin Ching. Who met Chin Ching? Lin Che pushed him away. When she looked down, she saw that her clothes were in a mess. Gu Jingze fell backward and maintained his balance with 2 hands on the floor, still looking at Lin Che strangely. Lin Che asked, you got mad because you thought that I went to see Chin Ching? Gu Jingze's expression softened and the gloominess from just now dissipated. However, he was now dull from feeling awkward. Turning his head, he withheld his embarrassment and looked at Lin Che. He pursed his lips and said, yes. Yes, I have never seen such a low-lying person. You are the low-lying person. I didn't even see Chin Ching. I was with Yoren at the coffee shop for a while and then we went to a bar. Gu Jingze stood up, really? That's good. But Lin Che glared angrily at Gu Jingze. She reached out and pushed Gu Jingze with one hand, You're simply a beast. You bastard. When she was done, she ran out with her face flushed, not daring to look at herself. Chapter 115. Gu Jingze is too vicious. Lin Che returned to her room and quickly ran into the bathroom to take a shower and wash away his taste. This damned Gu Jingze, he should die. How could he be so vicious and so incorrigible? That was so embarrassing. She pulled the blanket over her head. That damned Gu Jingze. After Gu Jingze exercised, he took a shower in the gym bathroom. Cold water poured over his body and he felt much better. For a moment, it seemed as if his hands were still holding on to her taste and her touch. That feeling was not detestable at all. He closed his eyes, but he could not keep his body calm and composed again. Damn it. He turned up the faucet, wanting to let a bigger stream of cool water engulf his burning body. By the time he stepped out of the gym bathroom, an hour had passed. Chin Hao rushed over in a hurry. Sir, were you looking for me? Gu Jingze glanced at Chin Hao. You told me earlier that Chin Ching was at the airport today. When he heard this again, Qin Hao quickly looked down. Yes, sir. Don't be too angry. Third young Master Qin and Madam are actually just. With a loud smack, Gu Jingze slammed a file on the table, interrupting Qin Hao. Qin Hao was clearly alarmed as he raised his head. Sir. It's nothing. You did a pretty good job this time. Gu Jingze smiled faintly and curled the corners of his lips. But Qin Hao felt that it was a little cold. I cut no corners when doing things for sir. Thank you for your acknowledgement, sir. I will work even harder. Qin Hao smiled as he said. Gu Jingze replied, to reward you, I think I should arrange for you to take a break. Huh, sir, you're too generous. You. Just in time actually. There's a problem at the factory in Cambodia. Why don't you take a break there and go check it out at the same time? Ah. Sir, are you sure that is a reward? Go ahead. I'll arrange for someone to get a plane ticket for you. If you don't solve the problem at the factory there, don't bother coming back. Gu Jingze's smile solidified. He took one last long look at Qin Hao, grunted, then turned and walked out. Qin Hao was left alone in bewilderment. Sir, what did I do wrong? At night, Gu Jingze did not sleep beside Lin Che. He was afraid that if he slept in the same room as her, he would not be able to face her and sleep. Lin Che was alone in the bedroom after a crazy and long night before she finally fell asleep too. The next day, Gu Jingze left the house early. Lin Che woke up just when Shen Yoren called. Wow, how did I end up at someone else's place yesterday? Shen Yoren asked. Lin Che asked, you were at someone else's place. What do you mean? He's a very fierce man. I was almost frightened to death. I thought something happened. Lin Che rolled her eyes and replied, oh, you're referring to Dr. Chen. I asked him to take you home. What's wrong? Nothing happened, right? Shen Yoren said, of course not. How can anything happen to me? I learned Taekwondo for 3 years so no man dares to touch me. 3 years of Taekwondo, but you're still a white belt. Quote. Shen Yoren said, but who exactly was he? He got me so fired up and then left. You were drunk. That man is a good doctor. Something must have happened at your house so he had to bring you to his own place. Okay, if you're up already, I'll go over to find you. I need to talk to you. All right. Soon, Lin Che was at Shen Yoren's home. Shen Yoren was still living with her parents. When they saw Lin Che arrive, they were pleasantly surprised. Yoren, Lin Che is so capable now. I'm always seeing her on TV. Shen Yoren's parents were humble workers. They were not poor, but not exactly rich either. Shen Yoren's expenses overseas were all funded by her own part-time jobs. She proudly pulled Lin Che and said, but of course, my friend has to be capable. When she told them to finish, she hurriedly pulled Lin Che into the house. Lin Che looked at Shen Yoren sheepishly and said, actually, when you weren't around, something happened to me. She thought that it was better to tell Shen Yoren this matter as there was no point in keeping things from her. What's up? I'm married, Lin Che announced. Huh. Shen Yoren almost jumped up. Lin Che held her down and then explained the situation as simply as she could. Shen Yoren was tongue-tied after hearing the story. She grabbed Lin Che so forcefully as if she wanted to strangle her. Gu Jingze. The Gu family. Lin Che, you're crazy. 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 Shen Yoren was the crazy one for shouting in the room for a long time. She shouted so loud that her parents heard the commotion and knocked on the door to check on them. Shen Yoren then lowered her voice, but stared intensely at Lin Che. Great young lady of the house, your lowly subject did not know at all. Please excuse me for my ignorance. Go to hell. But, this is too shocking. How did you? Lin Che looked at Shen Yoren speechlessly. All right, didn't I already say? He actually has a woman in his heart, it's just that I accidentally drugged him, so we. You are too daring to actually drug someone from the Gu family. I did it on impulse. Who knew that Gu Jingyu had such great capabilities? Who knew that I would mistake him for Gu Jingyu? But Gu Jingyu only booked the room and the person staying in the room was his brother. I spent a lot to bribe the hotel staff so that they could let me do it. It was a wasted effort. Bastard. Obviously, you gain so much more and you call it a waste. You are so damn lucky. Humph. Lin Che glanced at her and thought about Gu Jingze's viciousness. I welcome you to try it yourself. You don't know this Gu Jingze person. How horrible he is. Shen Yoren needed to go look for a job, so Lin Che soon returned home. She did not expect that once she entered, Gu Jingze would be right there. He sat gracefully on the chair and looked at Lin Che. She looked awkwardly at his long and slender hands. Yesterday. This damned man actually used his hands. She felt her body tighten. Something was not right. Meanwhile, Gu Jingze looked up at Lin Che. You're finally back. I was thinking of taking you out for lunch. I'm not eating right now. I'll eat at home later. Chapter 116, Unreasonable Woman. Lin Che immediately controlled herself. What are you doing? Gu Jingze stood up and looked strangely at her. Why? It's just a meal out. I know a place opened by a French chef and the food is extremely authentic. Go change and I'll take you to try it. Oh, okay. I'll go change now. Lin Che's face was red as she hurriedly went in. Gu Jingze turned his head and watched her in surprise. It was suspicious. Looking at her clumsily run in, he stood there and shook his head helplessly. Lin Che tried on numerous outfits. Since it was a French restaurant, she had to wear something proper. Unfortunately, nothing felt right. It was either too long, too short, or too revealing. She normally did not feel this way. It was just that after what happened the day before, something in her heart did not feel right every time she thought about Gu Jingze. Her face would uncontrollably turn red and she would not dare look him in his eyes. Pondering, she finally changed into plain clothes. She still looked pretty, but it was nothing fancy. She twirled around, put on some simple makeup, and then smiled in satisfaction. When she walked out, Gu Jingze had one hand in his pocket. He turned to look at her and paused for a while. Dressed in retro fashion, Lin Che looked like a medieval princess. She looked luxurious and elegant. Gu Jingze stared deeply at her, then walked over and said, "Let's go." Lin Che smiled. Gu Jingze asked, "Don't you know that you need to take my arm? This is Western dining etiquette." Huh. Gu Jingze bent his arm to form a hook. Lin Che looked and could only place her hand on his arm. He smiled happily and raised his head. Just as he took a step forward, the phone in his pocket rang. He grudgingly took out his phone to see that it was Mo Hilling. Gu Jingze frowned. He glanced at Lin Che beside him and then answered. "What's up, Hilling?" Mo Hilling was crying. "My house was burgled, I'm so scared." "What? Burgled by who? How's that possible?" "The house here that I just moved into. I don't know what the situation is like here, but I don't have as much security as your place. Also, I'm living alone, so," as she spoke, Mo Hilling's voice gradually got softer as if she was so scared and compromised. Gu Jingze took a deep breath. He had no choice as he looked over at Lin Che and then tried to soothe Mo Hilling. "Don't cry. I'll be right there." When he hung up, Lin Che had already let go of his arm. "Well, you should go take a look." Gu Jingze gazed at Lin Che, but before he could say anything, Lin Che smiled and said, "Hurry up and go. Burglary is not a small matter." Gu Jingze pursed his lips and looked at her. "All right then. I'm going over. Let the chauffeur take you to the restaurant first. I'll join you once I'm done." Okay. Gu Jingze took one last look at her, then turned and left. Lin Che pouted. This Mo Hilling couldn't have found a better timing. Meanwhile, at Mo Hilling's place, she put down the phone and spun around gleefully. Looking at her perfect room, she thought for a while and then threw everything out from the cupboards. She poured wine all over and pulled out all the drawers. Branded things were strewn across the floor. She set it up so that it really looked like a burglary took place. She smiled in satisfaction. Lin Che, Gu Jingze is mine. He may be your husband, but when I call for him, he still has to come to me. Gu Jingze quickly reached Mo Hilling's house. This place was very close to the Gu residence. It only took 10 minutes to walk to her place. Gu Jingze entered to see a crying Mo Hilling throw herself onto him. Gu Jingze recalled the time her tears came into contact with him and immediately caused a rash. He quickly dodged her. Mo Hiling threw herself into empty space. She looked up pitifully at Gu Jingze. Gu Jingze said, I didn't take my medicine today. It's best that you don't touch me or I'll have to go to the hospital immediately and won't be able to stay here. Mo Hiling heard and wiped her tears. She looked understandingly at him. Okay, I know I can't touch you. Gu Jingze looked at her. What happened? Mo Hiling pointed inwards. You see this? When I got back, I discovered my house like this. I'm so scared. Gu Jingze observed the mess in the room. His eyes scanned the entire place and then fixated on Mo Hiling's face. You were burgled. Yes, Mo Hiling nodded furiously. It must be because I just moved in. They must know that I live alone, so. Gu Jingze replied, I asked you who asked you to move here. Weren't you fine at home? Staying here alone is of course not good for you. There's no one to look after you. Mo Hiling fidgeted with her hands and looked at him. I still have you. But I'm very busy. I can't possibly come here and look after you every day. But I just wanted to be closer to you. I just wanted to be able to see you often, really. Just because of this, you moved here, Gu Jingze said. You're acting too immature. I'm willing to do anything for you. But, you can't lie because of me either. Gu Jingze looked at Mo Hiling. Mo Hiling was stunned. I didn't lie. Gu Jingze saw that she was unrelenting. He pointed towards the room and asked in a furious tone, look at this. Does this look like a burglary? Mo Hiling felt guilty by his words and looked at the room too. How does it not? Gu Jingze walked in. There are so many expensive necklaces and earrings, each one costing hundreds of thousands. The burglar only took them out but didn't take them with him. Furthermore, why would the burglar flip out your entire wardrobe? All the expensive items are in the locked cupboard and your wardrobe is just filled with clothes. Why would he waste time taking them out? Mo Hiling was flabbergasted. She had not thought these through and simply wanted to find a reason to let Gu Jingze know. But she was a pampered, rich girl who had never been burgled nor came across a burglar. Naturally, she did not think about these logical questions and did not set it up accurately. Her face burned with embarrassment. She looked at Gu Jingze and hurriedly said, sorry, Jingze. Gu Jingze shook his head and thought about Lin Che who was waiting for him at the restaurant. He turned around and walked out. Enough. Since there's nothing, I'll go first. I have things to do. Jingze. Mo Hiling looked up and grabbed his arm. Don't go. Please don't be angry. I was wrong. I was really wrong. Please don't leave. Hiling, let go of me. Gu Jingze got annoyed. This Hiling was getting more and more clingy and was still so unreasonable. Chapter 117. Angry for being stood up. Mo Hiling looked at him and panicked. She gritted her teeth and grabbed a vase beside her, breaking it into pieces as she threw it on the floor. Then, she picked up a shard and cut her own hand. Hiling, Gu Jingze tried to snatch it away from her but he was too late. The shard had already made a slit on her wrist. Mo Hiling did not expect it to hurt so much, so she cried in pain, Jingze, everything I do is only so that I can get closer to you. Please don't be angry anymore. Gu Jingze was hopping mad. This Hiling, how could she do that to herself? That kind of self-harm was such a self-loathing act. Then, Mo Hiling shuddered and collapsed on the floor, yelling in pain. Gu Jingze stood there and watched her with dread. He shook his head and called for a car. At the restaurant, Lin Che sat there and waited for a long time, but Gu Jingze still did not come. Perhaps it was indeed true that Gu Jingze would never come here since he was summoned by Mo Hiling. Lin Che felt so dumb to be actually sitting there and waiting for him. She was famished, so she figured she might as well order some food. No matter what, filling her stomach was the practical thing to do. As she was eating, she felt someone standing beside her. Thinking it was Gu Jingze who finally turned up, she raised her head. You still came. I already ate your share. However, when she looked up, she saw Gu Jingze standing in front of her. Gu Jingze. The older brother did not come but the younger brother came here instead. Gu Jingze sat down. What happened? Did you get stood up? No such thing, Lin Che replied sheepishly. Gu Jingze smiled and looked at her gorgeous get-up. What you just said was obviously not true. You don't need to pretend. Fine, since you look so pitiful, I'll help you eat a little. Why were the Gu men so shameless, one after the other? Gu Jingze then started eating. He looked at Lin Che. I heard you're going to be in a reality show. Yes, it's that very famous one. Our company let me take it up, Lin Che said. Gu Jingze chuckled. Given your IQ, won't the reality show turn into ashes? Why? You should know that reality TV stars must be very capable in order to capture the audience's attention. With your IQ, how are you going to compete for that attention? It can't be that bad, Lin Che said. It's a reality show and everybody has a chance. Also, since when did I have not enough IQ? Why don't you look at who you're with? There are a few veterans who have been in the show for 2 years, they are definitely more experienced in grabbing attention than someone like you. Besides them, there are a few other guests joining you and they are all fearless too. But you, he munched on the side dish that came with the steak and shook his head. Lin Che asked, who are the guests joining me? I heard the theme this time is about new female characters. The ones joining you are all new ladies. When you go there, you'll definitely recognize them, but the newcomers. Each new individual gets bolder and bolder. When you're there, you'll know. Lin Che suddenly felt slightly hesitant. Snatching resources were definitely not her strong suit. And the entertainment industry now was not a place to rely solely on acting skills anymore. Lin Che looked at Gu Jingze. Why are you here to eat? What's the matter? Gu Jingze replied, this entire mall belongs to the Gu family, so I'm just here to look around. It turned out that this belonged to the Gu family too. However, thinking about how Gu Jingze was still with Mo Hilling, her heart felt somewhat uncomfortable. She looked at Gu Jingze and said, if there's nothing, I'm leaving first. When she got home after parting ways with Gu Jingze still had not returned. Lin Che decided to spend the entire afternoon with Shen Yoren. At night, Gu Jingze was still not back. Lin Che sat on the bed, not wanting to ask the maids where Gu Jingze was. However, she was getting worried. Was Gu Jingze ill? The last time he touched Mo Hilling, he immediately fell ill. Perhaps this time, he could not control himself with Mo Hilling and fell sick again. But, why would he touch Mo Hilling? Thinking about it, she felt even more anxious and mad. How could he not control himself and touch someone else? If that was the case, he deserved to fall sick. If he died, it would be his own fault. Lin Che covered herself with the blanket, not wanting to think about Gu Jingze anymore. The next morning, Gu Jingze was still not home. Lin Che's spirits sank early in the morning. She spent the night alone in the room but she could not sleep properly. For some reason, she did not feel at ease. She was usually a heavy sleeper but last night, she kept drifting in and out of sleep. It must have been because she was too kind-hearted and worried about how Gu Jingze was. Just then, Gu Jingze came back from outside. She heard the noise and immediately stood up. She wanted to go out. But then, she thought about how he had spent the entire night with Mo Hilling. He was probably still living in the dream of being with her, so she decided that it was better not to rush out and burst his bubble just yet. After all, Mo Hilling was the woman in his heart. Lin Che gritted her teeth and remained inside. Gu Jingze headed straight into the bedroom. Seeing Lin Che there, his mind suddenly felt at peace. For the whole night, Mo Hilling was making a scene and threatening to kill herself. Anyone would have been impatient. But no matter how annoyed Gu Jingze got, it was no good to do anything to her. He only thought that Mo Hilling only became like this because of him. She was never like this before. You're back, Lin Che looked at Gu Jingze and grumpily greeted him. Gu Jingze nodded and eagerly wanted to explain, Hilling is in the hospital. She cut herself and she had been emotionally unstable. I was afraid that she would take things too hard. Lin Che lifted her head, oh, is that so? Then you should accompany her more. Gu Jingze took a few steps forward, wanting to hug Lin Che from the back. Because he got held up the entire night, he was frustrated and exhausted. It was as if seeing Lin Che made him feel a lot more at ease. Lin Che felt him come closer and immediately stepped away. Gu Jingze, what are you doing? She glared at Gu Jingze. Gu Jingze gazed at her. What's wrong? Are you mad at me for not meeting you at the restaurant? I'm sorry. It was because something suddenly cropped up. I'm not angry. Why should I be? It's only right for you to go accompany Mo Hilling and it's none of my business. I need to go to work and I'm going to be late. Step aside. She pushed Gu Jingze away and quickly walked out. Gu Jingze watched Lin Che's back helplessly. Standing there, he crossed his arms and sighed. Lin Che did not want to bother with Gu Jingze. She thought that she should distance herself from Gu Jingze. Otherwise, she would really get used to having Gu Jingze around. What was she going to do after the divorce? She was definitely not going to be with Gu Jingze forever. This was only to protect Mo Hilling. She should not let herself get too committed to this marriage. No matter how good things were, this was all fake. Chapter 118, Was she tired of him? At night. Gu Jingze waited until 9, but Lin Che was still not back. At the Gu residence, the maids were scurrying around. When they saw Chin Hao, who had just returned from Cambodia, they smiled briefly. Sir is inside. Chin Hao acknowledged them and went in to report to Gu Jingze. He knocked on the door and entered. Gu Jingze immediately got up and stared directly at him. Sir, Chin Hao said, you don't need to stand up. I'm back. Yes, I completed my task and came back. I missed you a lot while in Cambodia, so I finished my task as fast as possible to come back immediately. You. Before he could finish, Gu Jingze already sat back down indifferently. Oh, it's settled. Chin Hao had to lower his voice as he walked over and cautiously said, yes, already settled. Then you may leave. Yes. Chin Hao looked at Gu Jingze's cold expression strangely and could only leave the room. Gu Jingze sat down and took a deep breath, still feeling somewhat vexed. This anxious feeling while waiting for someone to return was something he felt for the first time. His heart grew more uneasy. Just then, the door opened. Once again, Gu Jingze immediately stood up. However, when he looked up with anticipation, he saw that it was Chin Hao yet again. Sir, I forgot. Chin Hao quickly submitted information and wanted to say something, but he was deterred by Gu Jingze's unhappy face. His entire body felt cold, so he hurriedly uttered, Sir. Gu Jingze placed his palms on the table and looked at him indifferently. His expression was cold and distant. Chin Hao, since you settled things so quickly at the factory, I'll leave the Cambodia factory for you to handle. Your break is not cancelled yet, right? You don't need to cancel it anymore. I'll get the Human Resource Department to buy you a plane ticket. Since your visa is still valid, you can continue staying in Cambodia. Quote. What did he do wrong? Chin Hao was panicking internally. Judging Chin Hao's capabilities, Gu Jingze swiped all the documents that Chin Hao just gave him onto the floor. He leaned back into his chair and rubbed his brows in fatigue. This damned Lin Che, why was she not back yet? At the bar. Lin Che sneezed hard. Shen Yoren looked at her strangely. Why are you sneezing? Don't tell me you caught a cold. No, it's probably the smoke here. Why do these people love to smoke so much? Who knows? Your husband doesn't smoke. Not really. He has great self-control. I guess so. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to be with you in the same room for so long and never touch you, Shen Yoren said. She looked at Lin Che curiously. You too actually. I can't believe you're not throwing yourself onto him. If I had such an opportunity, I would have done that long ago. Lin Che retorted, then you can go ahead. He's all yours. Nah, I'm not the one living with him. It's because of his illness, so he can't touch women. He probably can't even get aroused looking at me. No way. Lin Che had never thought about all these. But now that she thought about it, he did not seem to have any problems when he touched her. However, he still did not touch her. Lin Che suspected that it could be a psychological problem. Perhaps it was because whenever he touched women, he would get ill. Thus, whenever he saw women, he thought of them as obstacles and eventually lost the desire for them. Lin Che reminded herself not to disclose his personal matters too much, so she just smiled, "It's nothing. I'm joking." "Oh, that's why I said that I think someone like Gu Jingze would definitely have lots of women clamoring for him. Take good advantage of your damn luck, please. Don't be so resentful anymore." Lin Che rolled her eyes, "You don't understand. This damn luck is all fake. Sooner or later, it'll all go away." Lin Che sighed and leaned against the counter. Thinking about Gu Jingze, she figured that she should distance herself from him more. That would be the safest. When she got home, it was already 10. She reached the room but saw that it was pitch black. A voice suddenly sounded from the sofa inside. "So you do know how to come back?" That scared Lin Che, who watched Gu Jingze slowly get up. She patted her chest, "Are you trying to scare me to death?" Gu Jingze looked at the time. "What time is it? Why are you only back now?" "I stayed out a little later with my friend." "Eh, how come you're home?" With Mo Hilling so close to them now, he should have ran over to accompany Mo Hilling. She thought it through. Facing these problems was inevitable, even though it may not be comfortable. They were supposed to be a couple anyway. No matter how they got together, it should not be a problem. Gu Jingze replied, "This is my house. Of course, I can be home when I want to." "Oh, you can continue watching the TV then. I'm going in to change." When she spoke Finnish, she walked in without looking at Gu Jingze. Still burning inside, Gu Jingze only stood there and watched her back in confusion. This Lin Che was getting colder towards him. After a while, Gu Jingze walked into the room. Lin Che had already changed into her pajamas and was lying on the bed while reading her script. Gu Jingze cleared his throat. Lin Che raised her head and finally looked him in the eye. But she just looked back down and continued browsing her script. Gu Jingze frowned slightly and looked down at himself. He grunted and went into the bathroom. He thought that his figure was not bad and his appearance was fine too. He had not been working out as much lately, but his muscles were still in perfect form. He also knew that because Lin Che was in the entertainment industry, she would have seen countless handsome men and beautiful ladies. Perhaps that was why she already tired of looking at him. Lin Che heard the water running in the bathroom and glanced in that direction. The water stopped soon after and then the door opened. Gu Jingze stepped out. His body was still wet and his hair dripped with water. His strong, honey-colored skin rippled over his muscles. When he knew that she would be in the room, he usually put on a bathrobe or pajamas before walking out. But this time, he merely had a towel wrapped loosely below his waist. Even Lin Che felt worried about that towel wrapped around him. A single touch and he would be completely exposed. Was he mad? Gu Jingze, why aren't you wearing any clothes? Lin Che jumped down from the bed. Gu Jingze was walking towards her, his face emotionless like a natural model. He looked innocently at Lin Che. "What's wrong? It's hot in here and the bathrobe in the bathroom is still damp, so I don't want to wear it. Is there anything wrong?" "But you," Lin Che pointed to his lower area. There was something standing in the middle that would make people's thoughts run wild. Lin Che looked and remembered which part that was. Her entire body burned up. She quickly pulled back her finger which was still pointing at it. She put that finger in her mouth and started biting it. She could not deny. That area looked rather huge. Chapter 119. Any more movement and he will explode. Gu Jingze stepped towards Lin Che and looked at her with curiosity. "Are you okay?" Lin Che was still staring at his particular area until he called her. She jolted awake. Her face was flushed and the tips of her ears were red. She quickly composed herself and pretended as if she had been looking in front of her all along. She chided herself internally. A perverted, stupid woman. Couldn't she show more self-restraint? Didn't she decide not to think about him anymore and treat him like a piece of wood? However, that scene just now was too perfect. Any normal woman seeing a sexy man like that would have hardly been able to contain herself. Nobody could have avoided staring. She could only blame this Gu Jingze. How could there be such a perfect man on earth? And why did she have to cross paths with him? Furthermore, she still had to face him every day and share a room with him. Why was he strutting around naked for no reason? He was aware of how enchanting he was. He should know how people would react. Just then, she heard Gu Jingze asking strangely from behind, Lin Che, what exactly were you looking at? I'm thinking about tomorrow's show. I'm auditioning tomorrow and thinking of how to perform. Lin Che fumbled and tried to find an excuse. Oh, Gu Jingze said and then walked to her side. He looked at her dodging eyes, the veins on her neck, and the faint lines at the corners of her mouth. You must have plenty of offers for lead roles now and you still need to audition. Of course. We are professionals. We need to try out and see if the role fits, Lin Che said, feeling damp air get closer to her. She quickly lifted her head up to see Gu Jingze standing tall as he approached her. She said, Gu Jingze, why are you getting so close to me? And why aren't you putting on any clothes? Gu Jingze smiled lightly and looked playfully at her. Why? I just showered and I feel comfortable like this. Is that not allowed? After an entire day in clothes, I have to relax my body and let all my cells breathe. The same goes for you. Actually, sleeping naked is good for the body. This way, your entire body can relax and your entire day's fatigue will disappear. As he spoke, Gu Jingze leaned over. Lin Che only thought that he was like a Spartan as his huge chest muscles leaned down on her, carrying his unique masculinity. Whoa, Gu Jingze, what are you doing? Don't come closer, you can't bully me. Get away from me, you. Lin Che's hand reached up and hit Gu Jingze left and right. Gu Jingze frowned, grabbing Lin Che's arm and looking at her. Lin Che was shocked into bewilderment as she looked up at him angrily. Gu Jingze glared at her. What are you doing? Lin Che exclaimed, you're asking me. What are you doing? You can't. I was trying to get my phone. What did you think I was doing? Gu Jingze said. He reached his hand out and took the phone on the bedside table. Lin Che froze, looking up at him as he took the phone. He glared at her, then leaned on the pillow, and browsed through his phone. So he wanted to take his phone. Lin Che heaved a sigh of relief and patted her chest, but she turned and stared resentfully at Gu Jingze. It was his fault for strutting around without any clothes on. Also, if he wanted to take his phone, he could have gone the other way. Why did he have to reach over her? Since he reached over, of course, she would mistake his intentions. Lin Che grudgingly covered herself with the blanket but realized that Gu Jingze was still lying there naked. She was speechless. Did he really want to expose himself? How could he not wear clothes? Gu Jingze, can you put on some clothes? Lin Che wanted to look over at him but could only get fed up as she called him. Gu Jingze raised his head. Why? You not wearing clothes is too much. You're not the only one in this room. Gu Jingze looked plainly at her. I thought you would already be used to it by now. After all, we've been together for a long time. You wish she would never get used to it. Gu Jingze watched her hug her knees resentfully and laughed. He inched closer to her. Why? You still feel uncomfortable seeing me like this? Gu Jingze said, don't tell me you feel something after watching me strip. Lin Che blushed and exclaimed, who would feel something for you? Gu Jingze replied, then what are you scared of? We've been living together for so long that I thought you would have gotten used to it by now. For example, if you were to strip in front of me now, I wouldn't feel anything. Ha! Lin Che glared at Gu Jingze. Gu Jingze's eyes swept over her. If you don't believe, you can try it out. Lin Che's face grew even redder. She moved away from him and said, go away. Gu Jingze followed. Really? You can trust me. Trust his ass, this gangster. What a bastard. Come any closer and I'll scream. Go ahead. The people outside will just think we're having some husband and wife fun. Quote. Gu Jingze looked at her petite face all scrunched up and was extremely amused. He leaned even closer to her, his broad chest sticking to her. She looked at his prominent Adam's apple moving up and down, looking very masculine. She quickly pushed him and prevented him from getting closer. Since he was not wearing clothes, her palm was pressed against his bare chest. That feeling was undeniably good. However, she felt like something was not right. Gu Jingze looked down and felt as if he was being flat-ironed. He grunted and looked at Lin Che again, eyes burning up. Lin Che wanted to let go, but Gu Jingze kept her hand there. Gazing at her passionately, the fiery glow in the dark enhanced his hard expression. You, quote. Don't move, Gu Jingze interrupted her objection and frowned. Why are you so close? Lin Che tried to brush him away as she blushed. Gu Jingze's brows raised up. I said to not move. But I. He took her hand and brought it down to his body. Lin Che's hand grazed past an area, feeling it move. She was so flabbergasted that she quickly withdrew her hand. Now, you know why I asked you not to move. His voice was husky and beyond sexy. Let go of me. The more you move, the greater it'll be. So don't move. This woman really did not understand men. She still dared to fidget about. If she continued moving, he might really explode. Chapter 120. No other man as good as you. How could Lin Che stand it? Her face was bright red while her hand actually touched something hard somewhere, which was growing at an amazing speed and a surprising size. Seriously. Lin Che looked at the man in front of her. Why you? Now what do we do? Gu Jingze looked grimly at the woman in front of him. She still dared to ask what to do. How am I supposed to know? Gu Jingze asked in exasperation. Lin Che was on the verge of crying. You don't know and neither do I, it's your thing, not mine. Gu Jingze lowered his head to look at her. She quickly turned away and pretended not to see his begging expression. Gu Jingze curled the corners of his lips and slowly went up to her ear. Looking at her delicate earlobe, he could not help but kiss it gently. Lin Che's entire body trembled as she felt a current course through her from his lips. Gu Jingze's sound was too close as if it came straight out of his body. It may be my thing, but it's not listening to me now. Perhaps it'll listen to you. Say, what do we do? Quote. Lin Che swallowed her saliva and felt as if she was drowning under his gaze. She almost forgot how to breathe. But. Help me touch it. Take it that you're comforting it, okay. But. What else can I do? Gu Jingze grabbed her and pressed her hand down there. Separated only by the towel, Lin Che had no choice but to touch, grab, and hold the man in front of her. She felt his body tighten up while she nearly wanted to die of embarrassment. Could somebody tell her exactly what situation they were in? Although it was a little touch, it was tortuous to Gu Jingze. He could not suppress his growing imagination. He could only feel his usually great self-control already collapsing completely. No, this would not do. He only wanted more. He wanted to devour the woman in front of him right there and then so badly. However, he could not. Just as he was about to lose himself there, he closed his eyes and forced himself to jump out of the bed. Lin Che was shocked and he thought that she did something wrong. Did I make it hurt? I didn't really do anything either. Lin Che held her face and watched Gu Jingze walk into the bathroom. Then, she suddenly remembered that her hand had just touched a certain part of his. She quickly spat and moved her hand away. She looked at her own hand, unable to think straight anymore. This damn Gu Jingze. What was he doing? Gu Jingze entered the bathroom and quickly turned on cold water. He stepped into the icy, cold world, but did not feel any better. Hearing the woman outside exclaiming, he cursed. Yes, he could not do anything, so it was even worse. He lingered in the shower and then finally got out. He saw Lin Che quickly standing up and glared at her. He said, enough, don't go anymore. Let's just sleep. Quote. If someone found out this embarrassing scene, he would have been the laughingstock. The tragedy was that this situation had to happen to him of all people. Lin Che looked at Gu Jingze, who seemed to look much better. Although his body was still wet, his desire seemed to have diminished. She thought that it was strange. It was all solved just by being in the bathroom for half an hour. Although she may not have seen it, she realized that she heard of it. She suddenly thought of a possibility. Could Gu Jingze have gone to the bathroom to get himself off? Lin Che almost burst out laughing. Meanwhile, Gu Jingze's expression was gloomy and as heavy as a marble stone. Lin Che quickly sat back down, covering herself with the blanket and turning her head. Go to sleep. Gu Jingze also glared at her and then lied down. His body was still felt uncomfortable while the person beside him breathed loudly. The depressing part was, how could his body, which just cooled down, begin to stir up again? He sighed and turned his body over. Lin Che kept thinking about it. Maybe women were obstacles to Gu Jingze, so they would live together peacefully for a long time. But when she thought about it now, that was clearly not the case. Looking at him just now, he was rather healthy. But how was he still able to suppress himself? Perhaps it was because he wanted to keep his end of the promise. He knew that he could not touch her. Was that why he was controlling himself like this? Lin Che thought, perhaps men were not like women who can control themselves well. That was how she could look at handsome guys and with nothing happening except maybe some movement in her heart. But men would definitely show it physically. It seemed like Gu Jingze was actually very sad. Thinking about it, Lin Che could not help but smile. She tilted her head to hear that Gu Jingze was not moving. She said, Gu Jingze, are you asleep? Gu Jingze mumbled. Lin Che muttered, how can you talk if you're sleeping? I can't sleep talk. It looked like he was still brooding. Lin Che did not know how scary a dissatisfied man could be. She smiled and said, does it feel uncomfortable? She still dared to ask. What do you think? Lin Che could hear the grit in his voice. Lin Che hurriedly said, I'm sorry. How about we sleep separately next time? Quote ellipsis. No need, Gu Jingze replied. Lin Che chuckled and quietened down. Then, she said again, thank you. Thank you for tolerating such torture. Even though this agreement was made at the start, keeping a promise was a very moral thing to do. Gu Jingze brooded some more. Talk some more and I will go back on my words. Lin Che quickly shut her mouth. She hugged the blanket and faced her back against his, feeling a sense of security. However, she suddenly thought of something random that possibly her entire life's worth of luck was all spent on him. Because she was able to cross paths with him, perhaps she was really lucky. Maybe in the future after they divorced, she would never be able to meet an outstanding man like him. After all, how many people like Gu Jingze were there on Earth? The next day, Lin Che woke up and walked out with Gu Jingze. I'm going to work. Okay, I'll go with you, Gu Jingze said. Just as he opened the door, he saw Mo Hilling running towards him. Jingze, where are you going? What a coincidence. I'm about to go to work. Take me with you. Lin Che's face fell. Gu Jingze also frowned. He forgot that she had moved here and was so close to them that she could easily walk over.